Welcome back from there, and of course, at this particular time, let's get straight to the press review and see what's really making headlines in the world of business. Of course, we have just a few minutes here, about 2 minutes, but we can review something later from the print media here. And of course, as always, I'm going to start with the new vision and check out what's really making headlines in the world of business right there. And of course, what's really been on the talk around town, and of course every personnel we see here making the top headline here, as we see Museveni orders market vendors Museveni orders market leaders to vacate of course office. That is okay, we shall review this a little later. Let's first see what's really transpiring here. And of course we see entries open for schools competition on climate change, so as one of the ways to enhance this kind of embracing the climate change, and also the activities that are being put in place by the different stakeholders to ensure that the climate change obligations are being fulfilled. There is entries open for schools competition that's on climate change. All right, so that's regarding that matter. And of course we see Uganda to export tax-free goods to United Kingdom starting 2023. Very remarkable. We see the United Kingdom has offered a 99% duty-free deal for Ugandans' exports to UK trade market starting next year. So starting next year, Uganda will be exporting those goods for free at subsidized rate, tax-free actually goods. Okay, I will see Museveni orders Kampala city market leaders out of office. The President Yoweri Museveni disbanded the leadership of all the 16 Kampala markets. And of course, we see that these markets which are sitting on the government land, and of course, with immediate effect, the president ordered the current market leaders to hand over, that's the market's leadership, to the Kampala City Council Authority Executive Director, that's Dorothy Chisaka, for effective management. So that was really something which got so many of the vendors so much excited regarding this matter. So now the markets which are under government are officially under Kampala City Council Authority. And of course, still we see leaders, vendors react to presidential directives, and of course, following the presidential directive to disband leadership in Kampala markets. And of course, it's been received with mixed reactions from the various stakeholders here, as the most vendors were happy with President Yoweri Museveni's directives, while some of the leaders were not happy. And definitely the vendors were really excited by this new initiative regarding that matter. Okay, that's regarding that. Maybe just a little more here in the new vision, what's really making headlines to see. And of course, we see youth start mobilization from Museveni. Of course, this is more of I may not get into much there, but okay, we see Arab investors interested in textile industry. That's Uganda's textile industry. As we see President Yoweri Museveni met a delegation of investors, of course, from select Arab countries who expressed interest in constructing several factories that's in Uganda. The investors hope the factories will not only manufacture goods, but also provide employment for the Ugandans. So that is very, very remarkable to the growth and development. And we are looking at GDP. At the same time, we are looking at the income per capita. All right, the Uganda Revenue Authority suspends tax increments on used clothes. I'll see the Uganda Revenue Authority says it has called off plans to implement a new valuation on import duty. And of course, looking at the used clothes and shoes entering the country, just to suspend tax increments regarding that. And of course, the decision was made after a meeting with the traders of the Uganda Revenue Authority officers in Kampala. That's on Wednesday. So that's regarding that matter. All right, let's, of course, due to the interest of time, let's just review one just from the Daily Monitor, one report, and then we hit straight to the international news and see what's really transparent. Okay, now we see Ebola vaccines here by next week. That is something. I don't know what you perceive of that as a Ugandan out there. Next week, the vaccines will be right here in the country. And of course, we see floods leave travelers stranded in the West Nile. This was so, of course, travelers were yesterday stranded in Western region after River Tangi burst in its banks, cutting off Karuma Pakwach Road near the Pakwach Bridge. The River Tangi burst its banks on Wednesday following a downpour. And of course, by yesterday morning, more than 100 vehicles were still queuing on both sides of the river, waiting for the floods to recede. That is very, very disruptive. And of course, that means the business activities that are taking place between these two places where the floods have occupied, and that's going to be halted in a certain way. Okay, of course, police spend 3 billion shillings on anti-rioting tracks. Oh, that's also right there. You can check out that and see what's really transpiring. Money spent on those riot tracks. All right, of course, maybe Chief Justice decrease shortage of judges in the country. And also looking down here, computer misuse law challenged in court for the 3rd time. All right, it's exactly 44 minutes at this particular time. Let's get straight to the business international news. We start with Kenya, and this time around we are looking at Google. Google hosting 150 software engineers that's in Nairobi. Google hosted software developers and technical industry professionals to a full-day event of talks and workshops that's in Nairobi. The Google Sandbox program seeks to activate partnerships to deepen relationships that's within local tech community and bring first-hand experiences that's of Google to industry talent in communities around the world, particularly those untapped by the tech industry. Of course, through an immersive environment of collaboration, innovation, testing, and learning. Of course, Sandbox experiences showcase Google's technology and culture, and of course, provide exposure to Googlers and career opportunities and support professional development. Okay, Google's head of developer ecosystem, that's SSA, John Kimani, describes the event as a networking event for software developers that strengthens Google's engagement with talent in Kenya. Of course, since we opened our first office, this is a statement being made by John Kimani. He says that since they opened their first office in Africa in Nairobi in 2007, they have helped to strengthen an internet ecosystem in Africa that is vibrant and self-sufficient in the long term. In 2017, they made a commitment to train about 100,000 developers across Africa, and through their Google Africa Developer Scholarship Program, they have helped to train more than 105,000 developers. And of course, this engagement is just part of one of their overarching work to support and contribute to the broader tech talent ecosystem. That's what John Kimani said regarding that matter, because he's Google's head of the developer of the ecosystem known as SSA. The event engaged talent and brought together partners and professionals that's from across the industry to connect and build long-term partnerships with Google. This comes nearly a month after Google Kenya celebrated its 15th anniversary since opening its Africa office in Kenya at an event presided by President William Ruto. The country director for Eastern Africa, Agnes Gapia, says Africa-based software engineers will create informative products and services for people in Africa and around the world. And of course, at Google, they believe that in order to build for everyone, they need a diversity that's of perspectives and ideas to have better discussions, decisions, and of course, and outcomes, according to Gathia. That's the country director for Eastern Africa. And the Sandbox program builds on the development term. Of course, Sandbox as an environment for testing, experimentation, and learning. And of course, it aims to engage and support local tech communities and partners that have been previously untapped by Google. And of course, with the goal of fostering connections between Google and these communities, inspiring communities to collaborate and innovate, and branding Google as an employer of choice for underrepresented talent. underrepresented. Let me say that underrepresented talent. So that's regarding that. Over 100. That's 150 software engineers, and of course being hosted by Google. That's in Nairobi. That's very good news for, of course, not just Nairobi alone, but we are looking at the East African globe, the East African bloc, rather. All right, now away from that, we head to Nigeria, and of course, we see Nigeria seeking investment in new gas blocks. The federal government has identified about 213 gas blocks that are open for investment. A document obtained by Punch titled Nigeria's Precious Basins and of course the potentials for gas put together by the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum, thus Regulatory Commission, stated that the gas blocks were located in the Niger Delta, Anambra, Benue, through Bida, Chad, Dahomey, and Sokoto. It said 69 of the blocks were discovered, that's in the River Delta Basin, 12 in Anambra, and of course 41 in Benue, and 17 in Bida, 40 in Chad, with 6 in Dahomey and 28 in Sokoto. Okay, already the country has 60 gas basins, and of course under the oil prospecting licenses, and 44 are in the Niger Delta, 5 in Anambra, 2 in Benue, and through 6 in Chad and 3 in Dahomey at the same time. And of course there are also 115 gas wells already allocated under oil mining licenses, and 112 in the Niger Delta, 2 in Anambra and 1 in Dahomey. And the federal government, through the National Gas Expansion Program, declared 2020 to 2030 as a decade of gas and identified gas as the country's transition fuel. As part of Nigeria's contribution to the energy transition, the President, Major General Muhammadu Buhari, and of course in 2021 during the United Nations Climate Change Conference held in Glasgow, pledged that the country would reach net zero by 2060. All right, now we come to the end of the SMB International News report this morning as we look at the United Kingdom faces the biggest fall in living standards on record. The government's forecasters say that the disposable household incomes, when adjusted for rising prices, would dive by 7%. That's in the next few years. Living standards will not recover to the levels that they were last year until 2027, 2028, and of course it added. It comes as the Chancellor said that the United Kingdom was already in a recession and set to shrink further, that is next year. However, Jeremy Hunt said his autumn statement, which unveiled 55 billion euros of tax raises and spending cuts, would lead to a shallower downturn, of course, with fewer jobs lost. Energy and food bills have shot up due to the war in Ukraine and the pandemic and are squeezing household budgets. The inflation at which the prices is at 41-year high, and of course, and the Office for Budget Responsibility warns it is damaging on the economy at the same time. I will still see that the forecasters say that the overall UK economy was forecast to grow by 4.2% this year, and of course, but the OBR said it would shrink still by 1.4%. We are talking about next year, before rising to 1.3%, 2.6%, and 2.7% in the following 3 years. A recession is identified as the country's economy shrinks for 2 to 3 months periods or quarters, that's in a row. 2 to 3 months, we've seen the British economy deteriorating, inflation rising on a daily basis. And of course, this follows after 2 weeks back, when the Bank of England raised the interest rate by a certain number of basis points as a way to try to cap the skyrocketing inflation. But it's 3 weeks since the implementation of this increment of the interest, but the situation seems to be getting worse on a daily basis. All right. Typically, companies make less money, pay falls, and unemployment rises. And of course, this means the government receives less money in tax to use on public services. Delivering his autumn statement to Parliament, Jeremy Hunt said families, pensioners, businesses, teachers, nurses, and many others are worried about the future. But he said he was taking difficult decisions to tackle inflation and get the country's large debt pile falling. So quite so many initiatives are being done to ensure that the situation definitely gets back to normal. It's exactly 53 minutes past the hour of 7, and at this particular time, let's get straight to the business tips and quotes as a way to start your day to understand how best you can make the right decisions to ensure business growth and development. But firstly, let's review the business tip of the day. The business tip of the day says focus on leads, not sales. And of course, we see that content marketing paired with optimized website forms and intelligent, and of course, email automation, follow-up critical to business. And okay, well, it's not the first time we're reading this. We get to understand that before you think about, of course, we know that the reason that's why you start up in a business is because you want to make money, you want to make the profit. But sometimes it's not just about the money, but you need to focus about the leads, and you need to focus about other factors. And another revelation that we can get from this particular quote is getting to understand the aspect of self-development of the business, looking at how best are you going to provide your customers with the best, instead of just thinking about maximizing sales, which at the end of the day, you might maximize them, but after some time, consistency matters, and this comes back to the leads we are talking about. All right, now let's wind this up with the business quote of the day. The business quote of the day says that if you are passionate about something and you work hard, then I think you will be successful. I think that is very clear as it is. Think about something, work hard towards it, you will get at it. There is thinking about it passionately, but you're not working towards it, that won't help. But when you think about it and work towards it, definitely growth and development will be inevitable in your life. But so many times we think about only the one side, we look at just the one side, but we don't look at the whole picture. We don't spread the whole picture regarding that. So that's very important to think about that. Think about something, passionately work towards it. Definitely success will be inevitable. All right, we've come to the end of this particular segment, and let's get into a short commercial break. We'll be returning with more insights. Good morning.